Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday, the 7th of May, 2017, and the last few days the weather has been fantastic. No complaints at all. I hope you've all been out there getting your vitamin D and getting your suntan.
And your chemtrails.
And your chemtrails, yeah. There's always clear skies that always guarantee there's going to be chemtrails.
I was actually out about 2 nights ago in my brother's back garden in Cork, and they were spraying at night.
Unbelievable.
You can actually see a lovely dark sky, the moon, and a massive chemtrail.
Yeah, I'll tell you that they're not giving up. And there's a couple of guests that we're hoping to try and get on OYM. We've emailed them and we've asked them to come on because there's a lot more sinister things going on regarding that. So we're going to see if we can get them on. Anyway, right, our guest on the show tonight is Richard Cumbers. Richard's a good friend of OYM. We've had him on a few times, and we're going to be catching up on the Pain Genie. We're going to be talking about the Spooky 2. We're going to be talking about the banking system. We're going to be talking about loads of things, vaccines as well. But before we do that, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, communication channels this evening are...
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, the phone number again, 046 927 1212. If you're going to drop us a line, or call us in, from outside Ireland, it's 00353 469 271212. As we have mentioned before, the phone line, because it is an internet phone line, does tend to be flaky at the best of times because of our provider, who may one day get their finger out and sort it out. So if you can't get through the first time, if you do call, please do try again. We also have the anti-social media Facebook link for that, and also the links for Twitter, Skype and email are on the website. That is oymradio.com. And a big hi to everyone already logged into the chat room, and also People's Internet Radio as well. We monitor the chat room there, and a big hi to everyone logged in there. If you have any questions, those chat rooms are the place to put them. We also have on the website as well the TuneIn Radio application. That's a free app for your iPhone, your smartphone. You can check out the link there. It is on the website. It's a free app, and you can listen to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Thank you, Alan.
Right, back to you, Steve.
Back to me, yes. We have countercurrentnews.com. We have an article here that says more doctors are confessing to intentionally diagnosing healthy people with cancer to make money. More doctors are finally getting caught in the act of misrepresenting their oath and fraudulently diagnosing healthy patients with cancer in order to turn a quick buck from kickbacks on chemotherapy. Why shouldn't doctors lie when the entire cancer industry is one gigantic fabrication from start to finish? It's a wonder, it says, that cancer societies worldwide put a far greater financial initiative on chemotherapy and radiation research than disease prevention techniques. It also goes on to say preventing disease doesn't make money, but treating disease certainly does. We've said that a long time ago on the show. There's money to be made in cancer, and that's treating it and not preventing it.
Why would you affect your bottom line being a business who produce chemo and radiotherapy? I mean, there are businesses. That's what it's all about. It's the bottom line, making money. You know, why would you come out and give them the proof that other products will work? Because you affect your bottom line. So it's all business. That's all it is. Right. The Irish Sun had an article there where it says inhaler danger. Majority of asthma sufferers in Ireland are not using their inhalers correctly, risking a serious asthmatic attack or even death. One Irish person dies every week due to an asthma attack, and experts say 90% of these deaths are preventable. More than 300,000 Irish asthmatics are not using their inhalers correctly, it has been revealed. The Asthma Society of Ireland has warned that improper use could lead to a serious attack or even death. So if you're asthmatic in any way, please go off and check and make sure you are using it properly. We don't want people having any accidents. Obviously, contact the Asthma Society of Ireland if you're not sure. There's obviously a reason why they put that report out there. Steve?
Yeah, so there's obviously a proper way to use your inhaler. Find out what way it is, because obviously if you're using it the wrong way, you could die. I don't know. It's strange. It's strange. I would have thought that anyone who does have an inhaler is kind of taught how to use it, but, obviously not.
No harm checking it anyway.
No, anyway, extra.ie. Dr. Rory Hanley has infuriated some parents by suggesting anyone who doesn't get the HPV vaccine should have their children's allowance cut. Dr. Hanley has suggested any parent who fails to complete the childhood immunisation schedule should lose 50% of their children's allowance payment until the child reaches the age of 18. It says less than half of teenage girls started the recommended HPV vaccine series last September, well below their 80% target. Well, look, obviously parents are starting to wake up, and the doctors are starting to realise that the parents are starting to educate themselves. They are starting to talk and form little groups and join up, although I'm not a fan of Facebook, but they are starting to join a lot of the groups on Facebook where they are getting information, and they're starting to educate themselves, and whether the information is right or whether it's wrong, it's raising a question, and I think they should deal with that question rather than their hard-handed approach. If you don't get it, well then we're going to cut your children's allowance. The children's allowance was brought in this country a long, long time ago, long before vaccine schedules and childhood immunisation programs. So, it was brought in, and I think that should be left alone, and they should not have the right, this Dr. Hanley should not have the right to threaten parents with this. I think he needs to have his hand slapped.
It's funny they use the word target, because in businesses, in sales, they use the word target a lot, isn't it? So 80% target. Are we sure that's not a sales target rather than an immunisation target? Also, in Australia, they're trying to force people to have vaccines, or they will also cut their social service check. Apparently, the Australian president, I think that's what he'd refer to him over there. His wife has a background in pharma, or is involved in the farmers over there. So there's definitely a conflict of interest there, and that's what they're trying to do over there. That's one of the listeners who listen to us in Australia told me that during the week on Facebook, which is quite interesting. How's your week, Steve?
Yeah, my week's fine. As I mentioned earlier, I was in Cork for the past couple of days. Myself and my wife were down with my brother and his wife, and my sister was there too. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to say to my wife, although she's not online at the moment, but she will listen to the podcast, happy anniversary, 23 years married.
23
today.
Years?
Yes.
And you're here with me?
Yes.
Instead of your wife?
Yes. What does that say?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, we celebrated over the weekend, so, I have a hall pass for this evening.
Okay, I've seen the scars on when you come in the door there.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to. That's where she was kind of clinging on with the fingernail. Anyway,
that's another story.
That is another
You'll
story.
see the video later.
Yeah, anyway, what else? I was actually talking to my brother's wife last night. We had a conversation in relation to, funny enough we're talking about vaccines, in relation to Vera Toomey. And she was, I don't know how the conversation came up, but we were just kind of chatting away about Vera and her daughter and all the kind of publicity that's around that. And the fact that Vera is from Cork, we were just I was getting her perspective on it. And because she works there and she obviously talks to a lot of people, she said that the general consensus with a lot of the people that she has spoken with in Cork is that, and I don't like saying this, but she said Vera Toomey is a nut job. And I said, no, whoa, hang on a second, that's a very bold statement to make. I said, what are you basing that on? And she said, well, they said this and they said that. And I said, well, who said this and who said that? Well, it was on the radio. I said, oh, well, hang on. If it's on the radio, it must be true. Is that what you're saying to me? Well, they wouldn't have said it if it wasn't. And I said, well, hang on a second. Let's be honest here. Have you ever heard anything on the radio being said that you found out later wasn't true or wasn't completely accurate? And she says, well, I suppose so, yeah. And I says, right, well, okay, so, would it be possible that maybe they're leaning towards the hand that feeds them, so to speak? And she says, well, it's possible. And I says, right, so, okay, we've agreed that maybe she's not a nut job. Yeah, but she's been offered so many different therapies, but she won't go through with them. And she wasn't stopped at the airport, she says. When she came through, she declared what she had. And I said, well, why would she declare what she had? And she said, well, I don't know. I said, well, think about it. Why would she declare it? And then my brother said, well, obviously, if she didn't declare it, they knew she had it anyway, so they would have stopped her and confiscated it, and then she would have been arrested, and then she would have, went through, obviously, the process and would have had a criminal record. Mm. So she declared it, so everything was above board.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation, it was about maybe 10, 15-minute conversation But a lot of people in Cork are under the illusion that there's loads of different therapies available, and she should just pick any one of these therapies and not be so fixated on this cannabis oil. And
She's actually tried them all.
Yeah, and I said to her, do you realise that she has been down this road? This is the only thing that actually works. And not just for her, I said, there's a lot of other people. Have you seen the chap with Parkinson's? I said, where he's shaking. I said, Parkinson's is a very debilitating disease. I work with people that have Parkinson's. I looked after them. And I says, he takes a small piece of oil, a small bit, like, ingests it, and within a couple of minutes, 5-6 minutes, his tremors have stopped. And I said, this medicine, I said, you can't call it a drug. It's a plant, I said. It's so, there's so much more research that needs to be done because it's beneficial for a hell of a lot more than we even know today. But it was kind of, it was like talking to a brick wall, so to speak. But yeah, so unfortunately, a lot of people are listening to what's on mainstream and they're not doing their own research. And I said to her last night, I said, look, Mary, we've got a podcast. We actually interviewed the lady herself in question. I said, go listen to the podcast, listen to her story, because that's what, you know, that's from the horse's mouth. Yeah. And don't be listening to what's being portrayed as real news.
Well, I would have said, do you believe everything you're told? And if she says no, well then why do you feel that you have to believe these because it's the media?
Well, see, it's because the media says it, and then everybody thinks it, and then it's the topic of conversation in the workplace, you know, and no one, I mean, especially with some women, and probably some men too, they don't want to disagree, they don't want to stand out. They'd rather just kind of join on with the heckling and the name calling and all this, rather than take a stand and go, well, hang on a second.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, that's it in a nutshell, really, yeah. How's your week?
Well, funny you should say, talk about Vera. Now, for people that have been on Facebook or just watching what's going on, Vera Toomey was camping outside Leinster House trying to gain access to the medicine for a sick child. That's all she wants, is to get the medicine for a sick child. And then we heard during the week that Stephen Manning from Integrity Ireland, Stephen's been on the show as well, and him and his team in Integrity Ireland are at the cutting edge of challenging the actual legal system. And Stephen has been jailed for 2 months. And the judge wouldn't even let him read out his case. He just jailed him for 2 months. And they continue to expose judicial and guarded corruption. And they're just trying to do all they can to, I mean, basically what they're doing is they're going to encourage a revolution in Ireland, because this can't go on. Really, really can't go on what's happening. So, but just to have a shout out that there's people out there in their own way fighting the system. And we ask everybody to do their bit. It doesn't matter what it is, but do your bit and try and do what you can. Because the sooner the better we all stand up, the sooner the better this system comes down. Now, talking about CBD oil, and maybe this is something that we can talk to Richard when we bring him on in a few minutes. I was talking to Steph, a voiceover lady during the week, and we were talking about the whole CBD oil medicine, you know, for medical reasons. And you know, the Gardaí have just implemented this drug testing thing.
Yeah.
We were just wondering, would the CBD oil, if it's in your system, show up on that drug testing thing?
That's interesting, yeah.
Is it the CBD, or will it pick up on the THC?
I would have guessed the THC. That would be a guess, and I only say that because I know that you can go into any health shop in Ireland and you can buy hemp oil. Because
if they know that people are taking CBD oil, is that what they're trying to do with this drug testing, to try and catch people who are taking CBD? So hopefully they'll be able to catch them and do them and say, oh, well, you're a drug taker, and it's actually not drugs, it's CBD oil.
It's quite possible. You wouldn't know we don't know enough about what they're doing and why they're doing it. As I said a couple of weeks back, when they're taking that swab from the inside of your mouth, that has your DNA.
Yeah.
You know, what are they doing with that? Are they harvesting and, you know, categorising the DNA?
It's a bit of a concern, and it's a topic we'll speak to Richard about it, but it's something of interest that, you know, if they're doing drug testing at the side of the road and you take CBD oil, would it actually show up in your system? Depends on how the drug testing device works, I suppose. And the last thing on the list before we get Richard on is the banking system. Now, I've had a complete and utter nightmare with the banks this week, trying to do a simple process of transferring money, and it's like they're like a child, a social worker with a child. You just can't get the money off them. They won't give you the money. There's every excuse under the sun. I was trying to do it on Friday for a family member, and they waited till about 4 o'clock in the evening to tell me that it couldn't be done. They didn't tell me in the morning because they obviously didn't know themselves. But then phoned me at 4 o'clock and said, oh, we can't do it. So, the transfer I wanted to do couldn't be done. So I've had it up to my neck with the banking system. So during the week, I actually popped into the local credit union just to see what was happening, what was going on with the credit union. Now, what I'm about to tell you is not to be seen as financial advice or legal advice. I'm just telling you what I'm going to be doing. And if you decide to do it yourself, and then that's fine, right? Now, the credit union is, as we know, is called the poor man's bank. And it's changed. It's all changed, and changed for the better. And I'll tell you why it's changed for the better, all right? The maximum amount of money that you can keep in a credit union is 100,000. And if you have that much money, fair play to you. My name's Alan, and that's Steve. But anyway, seriously now, if up to 100,000 your money is insured and covered under insurance, anything over 100,000, it's not insured. Okay. Now, also, years ago with the credit union, you had to know if you wanted, say, 2,000 euros. You'd have to have near enough 1,000 in. And you normally worked around that. They wanted you to have near enough half. Well, that's all changed now. It's now only 20%. So if you want to get, say, 5,000 out, you have to have 1,000 in. Or if you want to get 1,000 out, you'd have to have 200 in. So in your savings. Okay, so that's a great thing. So that's come down now. So only 20% of the loan amount is what's required. Now, the other thing is they only charge 7% interest on the loan. All right? And what happens is when you start paying off the loan, that 7% goes down. Unlike the banks, the bank's interest rate stays at, whatever interest rate they charge you. But with the credit union, that 7% goes down. Now, credit cards at the moment are just gone doolally. The interest rates on credit cards, I've got a credit card, and I know it's a necessary evil, but when you don't have money, the credit card's there, it's handy, right? Now, Thomas did his show there on the Truth, Honour and Integrity show, and he was saying that the Americans, a lot of Americans have paid off their bank debt. Up to $1 trillion in bank debt has been paid off. And the banks obviously don't like that. They want people in debt, okay? Now, and purely by switching to a local credit union or switching to a local community bank. So, here's the plan of attack. Here's what I'm looking at doing, okay? Now, as I say, I have a credit card debt, okay? So, and I'm going to give you an example. This is not me, my debt, but I'm going to give an example of what you can do. Say you have a credit card debt of 4,000, okay? 4,000 euros, and they're charging you 24% interest, probably even more, right? What I'd suggest you do is get this is what I'll be probably looking at doing in my own financial way. If you get £1,000 on that credit card, right, and stick that £1,000 in the credit union, right, that now gives you the ability to get a loan of 5,000 euros, all right? So you get a loan of 5,000 euros, you then pay off your credit card, which you're paying at 24%, 22%, or 25%, whatever the percentage is, right, which never goes down, by the way. So you pay off the debt to the bank, which the banks won't like, and then you now have a loan, right? So you have 1,000 euros savings in your credit union account, and okay, you have a 5,000 loan, but you can secure the loan. I think there's a little thing that you can do, and you can have a secured loan, so if you lose your job, that the loan is taken care of if you want to sign up for that. But you're only paying 7%, right? Instead of 24%, you're only paying 7%, and the percentage goes down. And you can negotiate better with a credit union than you can with a bank. Okay? So, if you have a credit card debt, or you have a loan out with a bank and the interest rate is driving you nuts and you can't afford to deal with it, go down to your local credit union, find out all the information I just told you. Now also, by the way, the credit unions can offer you a current account to pay your bills and to do standing orders. They also give you online access so you can do all your banking or your credit union stuff online. And I was also told the other day that they can offer you an ATM card so you can actually take out your money from your savings through AIB bank link machines. Okay, now that was unheard of with credit unions years ago. So the credit unions, and there's a lot more stuff going on. They offer home insurance and all the other insurance, car insurance and all that kind of stuff. So I would recommend anybody that has a loan with a bank, or if you have credit card debt with a bank, go down to your local credit union, suss it up, work out the figures on what you need to do to put money in the savings to clear that debt. Because if we cleared all the debts in their credit cards in Ireland, then the banks would be up in arms, because if nobody has a debt with a bank, it's going to drive them nuts, alright? And you're going to benefit because you'll be paying less money on to the banks, and there'll be more money in your pocket and less money in their pocket, alright? So out of your own interest and for saving money if you're struggling, check out the credit union and go down and check it out. That's my recommendation. Let me just check if there's anything else I need to touch base on. No, that's it. Just go down and check it out. And that's what I'm going to be doing this week. I'm going to put the wheels in motion this week to start doing that. I'm going to get rid of the banking debt. Obviously, mortgages are different, but the credit unions are actually going to be looking at giving out mortgages, by the way. But I'm going to be looking at getting rid of the banking debt completely. And then I'll be going, bye-bye bank, no more money, you're getting no more money off me. I'm going to deal with the credit union from now on. So that's it. And Steve, you've been doing it for years and you've been happy with that?
Well, I've been using the credit union for a long time now. And yeah, it's like we say. I mean, you obviously you have to have savings. You have to prove that you can save. And yeah, they will facilitate you with a loan. And if you have, as an example, if you have €1,000 in there, and you want to borrow €2,000, obviously I think you said it's 7%. But if you have €1,000 savings and you only want to borrow 800, then you can borrow 800, and that's actually seen as a secured loan. And I think the interest rate is even lower than 7%. So again, yeah, there's a lot of deals that you can get through your local credit union. And for the sake of either a phone call or just walking in and just having a quick chat with one of the individuals there, it's amazing, like, the information that you can learn.
Exactly. So before we get Richard on, I'll just say, if you want to give the banks a good kicking and save yourself some money, get yourself down to the credit union, open up an account, and then transfer all your money. I'm planning to actually do all my banking now through the credit union and just completely moving away from the banks. You know, I might still have a bank account, but I won't be doing anything. I'll probably be just doing the mortgage and that's it, nothing else. I'm just moving away from them.
So if people mention your name, will they get a discount?
No. But
welcome to Troy, though.
Well, there you go. But look, go and check it out. It'll be worthwhile. Right, our guest, Richard, is a good friend of OYM's. Richard's been on the show a few times, and we're going to get an update from Richard on things that have been going on in his life. And we're going to be talking about the paint genie, we're going to be talking about the spooky too, we're going to be talking about the vaccines, and we're going to be talking about the banking system, which is, I think Richard has a sad story or bad story to tell us about the banking. Good evening, Richard. How are you doing?
Hello, chaps.
Yeah.
Hi, Rich.
How are you doing? Listen.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear here.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot for coming on. Much appreciated. Before we get into the paint genie and all that kind of stuff, you said you had a story about the banking system you want to tell us about.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. It was after some involvement, with David Noakes, who does GC Math and had a company called First Immune. And I'd been over into Guernsey to run a training course over there. And shortly after I came back, apart from some other things that happened up in London, which weren't too pleasant, the bank lost a considerable amount of my company money. And despite about 27 phone calls and 2.5 months of trying to find out where it had gone, no one could tell me where it had gone. And this is actually, I had the details of the transfer to my account. I gave it to them. It was 2.5 months of literally banging my head against the wall. And it's almost like the banks are not only too big to fail, they're just too big to be challenged about anything. So what happened after 2.5 months, the money mysteriously ended up back in my account. There was no explanation. There was no apology. And in that time, I came very close to going bankrupt.
That's terrible.
But it's amazing, because if there was any other business, then there'll be all hell to pay. Because they're the banks, I think they believe they can get away with pretty much anything. And of course, we've seen they can.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I'm saying. You know, if people want to make a stand and save themselves some money, then the best thing is to move away from the banks. Years ago, they had a good reputation of being solid, honest and trustworthy. But we all know now, with securitization and the fractional reserve banking system and the scams they pull, they're just as bad. I mean, the only difference between them and a crook is that they wear a shirt and tie. That's the difference.
Exactly. And they've got all the best buildings in the high street. The top executives are on high salaries. They get interest-free loans, and it's just money for the boys. I mean, I actually worked for a merchant bank for about 9 years up in London, literally in the square mile. And because I was actually dealing with the computer situation, security, I actually met a lot of people at high level because I looked after security for the bank. And I tell you, some of the stories that I saw and heard of and insider dealing, I mean, to my knowledge, it was normal. In other words, it's a bit like if you're working in the Middle East, if you want to get something done, there's bakshish involved. The bribes have to be paid. There's nothing different in the West. It's just that it's under the counter. And in the Middle East, perhaps it's just accepted and everyone calls it bakshish or whatever they want to call it. And everyone knows what the score is. It's just here that you have to be almost, you've got to be one of the boys or protected at a high level to actually, to be seeing what's going on. It's only the flotsam and the jetsam, the kind of goyim as we're called, that actually end up in a situation having to pay for everybody else's, mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think if people actually want to make a difference, and we all can make a difference. And as I say, check out your local credit union and find out what's going on. Now, the credit union, they're still regulated by the central banks, but as far as I know, it's only a regulation. It's only regulations. There's still a community. It's still a community, isn't it? There's still a community system.
Yeah.
And if you're a member, it's your system. You become part of that system. I think it's the way to go. And they have credit unions over in the UK, as far as I know, Richard.
I believe they do, but I'm not actually familiar with them. I just know that in Ireland they're very prominent, as I say,
Yeah, no, bigger all around Ireland, which we used to call the poor man's bank. But apparently all the issues that they had years ago have all changed. So I definitely go down that road. But okay, well listen, let's crack on. Let's get into what we need to talk about. Right, first and foremost, obviously, for regular listeners to Open Your Mind Radio, they know that you've been on the show, Richard. And when you first come on, and we talked about the pain genie. And myself and Steve said, well, put your money where your mouth is. And that's exactly what you did. And you drove up from County Clare, I think it was. And then you treated myself and Steve and Steve's wife. And, within a few minutes of treatment, Steve was pain free for 5 days and your wife was pain free for 2 days.
I was doing handstands and cartwheels.
I'll tell you, I've never seen Steve so active.
I thought that was a Guinness.
Yeah, well, that too, probably, and we were sold because, it's what I said on the tin, did what I said on the tin. So, and then, we did the training. Thanks to the listeners, by the way. It was a listener that actually bought OYM, the pain genie, and it was the same listener that paid for the training to do level 1 on the pain genie. And I'm still using the pain genie. I was treating. I just said to you there before we went live. My father had to go into hospital for some treatment, and I was in there giving him some treatment with the old pain genie. And as I say, I think the nurse was looking over there and saying, "What's your man doing?" But she didn't come over and she didn't say anything. I was down in the local men's shed there a couple of weeks ago, and the chap is suffering from bad arthritis, and he had a kind of blockage in his neck, and he was taking the drugs, and he said, "I don't like taking the drugs because they make me sick." So I gave him a pain genie. In 5 or 10 minutes of doing that, he said the blockage has gone. And I seen him there last week on Thursday, and I said, "How are you getting on, Pete?" And he said, "I haven't taken any tablets since he gave me the treatment." He said, "It's been fine."
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the issues with this device is that even for people who are fairly awake and have seen that the allopathic medical system in the West is fatally flawed in most ways, it's hard to believe that a device so small and so easy to use could be so powerful. And that's always been the issue, but it's not the fact that we have a problem talking about it, getting it out there. It's actually, for a lot of people, even if they do the training, until they actually treat a few people and get those amazing results, which usually people do, or self-treatment, because there's nothing else I can see around about the same price, or even maybe 10 times the price, if I'm realistic about it, that can actually achieve the same results. And I did listen to one of your shows not long ago when I think you were interviewing the Spooky 2 guy. I think it's Alan White.
John White, yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed, I think it was a slight mistake there, was that I think you were saying that the Pain Genie is more symptom-based rather than cause-based, and it's the opposite. The reason why this technology from the Russian space program is so powerful is that it does find the cause. So, if you go into your living room and there's a big crack in the wall, the allopathic approach, the drug-based LD50 side effect approach, is to paper over the crack and then pretend it's all fine. It's a bit like the all light in your car comes on, you just cut the cable and say, no, it's okay. Well, it's not, because your engine's overheating.
Yeah.
But the reason that the Pain Genie and this scanner technology is ultimately so effective is that when you brush it over the body and it sticks, or you feel tingling, or it'll beep, depending on what setting you have it on, you're finding a blockage. And if you start looking at the two main understandings of natural health, there's just two major things to get across. Number one is your body never does anything to harm you. And that's a difficult one for a lot of people, because they're so used to giving responsibility to a guy in a white coat and taking a drug. And in other words, they're not taking responsibility that why they're ill. They're just going to get some quick fix or some symptomatic-based approach to it. And the second thing about the body is that all disease is ultimately caused by blockage. So if you've got a blockage, whether it's mental, spiritual, physical, or emotional, in other words, the emotional and the mental will always, if they're not dealt with, they will filter down and cause a manifestation at a physical level of a physical disease, usually within 6 months to 10 years of an emotion not being dealt with. So again, you can look at the work of Dr. Hammer, Hamer, and it's now called the German New Medicine.
Yeah.
And actually there's a conference in Cork on the 21st of May, which I'd love to go to and we'll try to make. They're really showing now with 10,000 brain scans, MRI scans, the area of conflict in the amygdala and the different areas of the brain that relate totally to the Alzheimer's, to the Parkinson's, to the cancer. And so this has been pretty much categorically proven, but it's going to take a lot longer for it to get anywhere near mainstream, mainly because, most doctors have got 5 or 6 years tied up in training. They're more to do with pharmacologists rather than doctors. And so the understanding is going to come, but it's not going to come from it's going to come from the people like your listeners and the people using the Pain Genie who've seen the results of natural medicine, who actually force the change at the top. Because the top is not going to change until you've got a new paradigm that's more effective than the old one. You know what I mean? Because there's too much invested in it.
Yeah, we had James McConsky on the show. He wrote a book, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head what the name of the book was, but it was actually sent in to us by a listener, and I'm actually still reading the book, and it talks all about Dr. Hammer and the German New Medicine. And James was on the show, and he was telling us, James was based in Belfast, and he was telling us all about Dr. Hammer, and he's actually studying it at the moment, and he wants to kind of obviously get into it and learn all about it, and maybe offer it to people over here when he feels that he's fully qualified. That's it. That's lovely, Steve. That's brilliant. What's the name of the book?
It's the Ultimate Conspiracy, the Biomedical Paradigm.
Yeah.
By James McConsky.
Yeah.
So if you haven't heard that interview, Rich, I'd recommend listening to James, because he talks about the new German medicine, and it's very, very interesting. I'm finding the book very interesting and highly technical as well. There's some bits that it's a glaze over part, more kind of suited for kind of the medical profession, I suppose. But it's still interesting what he talks about, the likes of vaccines, breast cancer, and different kinds of cancers, and how they interact with your body, and the relays in your brain and how they work. So that's brilliant. So it's just funny that you mentioned Dr. Hammer.
Yeah, I did hear the interview, interestingly enough, and I've read quite a lot about it. I was involved with a system called the NES system, which I helped to some small degree to get going about 15 years ago. It's a leading bioenergetic system which can scan the body field, and it's scanning the field of information for the body. So in other words, you don't actually have to be present to be scanned, which for most people is a bit freaky. But then again, you look at radionics and the Spooky 2, you can do remote treatments. it's all down to this quantum electrodynamics and the new understanding of what entanglement is and superposition. In other words, particles can be in more than one place at the same time, and if you have two particles that are interfaced with each other, then you change one, you change the other. And this has been well proven now for a long time. But to come back to this thing about the German new medicine and them proving, I think pretty much categorically now, that the emotions are right behind physical disease, that the reason that often the pain genie will have almost sort of miraculous results is that, for example, say you're brushing it over your abdomen and you find a really sticky area of your liver. Well, in Chinese medicine, the liver is to do with anger, for example, and the gallbladder. And when you actually find that and treat it, the device goes into a biofeedback with the central nervous system. And as part of that biofeedback, which is the cause, remember, it's the cause of the physical manifestation of a liver problem or other problem, it will have to get the liver healthy, it will have to deal with the emotion of anger. Because the two go together. It's like a ship moving through the water. If it's moving, there's a bow wave. You can't take the bow wave away from the ship if it's moving. It's just impossible. So again, if your anger is unbalanced, your liver is unbalanced, because the emotion of anger is just a higher harmonic, a higher frequency of the frequency of the liver. So when you find that, say, sticky area and you're treating it or brushing it with the pain genie or leaving it until it beeps and it's completed its automatic function, then the neuropeptides that are released, and there's over 100 types of neuropeptides in the body. The Russians are very much at the forefront of understanding with this research. The neuropeptides, or nerve chemicals, are pre-designed by the body to deal exactly with any problem they come across. So when you hit that area and you go to biofeedback, the neuropeptides start cascading down these meridian lines through chakras and nadis and to different points of the body, all related not just to the liver, not just to anger, but anything in the body that has a frequency that the liver has. So you look at the liver, it has a harmonic frequency. It might start here and end here, for example. Each meridian system or organ has a different frequency. So when you start treating it with the pain genie, the neuropeptides are not just looking at the physical liver, they're dealing with everything associated with the liver. And that means the emotions of anger. So in other words, the neuropeptides are looking at the areas of the brain, if you like, or the mind, the body-mind, that have generated an imbalance of anger, and the neuropeptides start looking at those as well as the liver. So you'll often see with someone, for example, say they're depressed and you give them a treatment, you'll often see at the end of it, they're kind of smiling, they're cheerful, and you think, wow, how can that possibly happen if I'm just dealing with a physical problem? It couldn't happen, could it? If it was just physical. Because we're seeing the emotions as a very non-physical, slightly intangible thing, but yet everyone knows that, the heart's joy, for example. So, if you go to a typical medical doctor and you say the liver's anger, he might look at you a bit strangely and say you're talking poppycock. But if you ask him what the heart is, he'll say joy. So you say, well, if you know what the heart's joy, why shouldn't the liver be anger? I mean, what's the problem between understanding the heart and not translating that into other areas of the body?
Yeah.
So
It's funny you should say that, because years ago when I was in the corporate world, a boss of mine was very kind of arrogant and egotistical and all that kind of, selfish attitude. And I believe, my understanding is that's related to the prostate. And it's just funny that he got prostate cancer. I was looking it up anyway somewhere in one of these books about the emotions related to certain organs, and this one actually tied into wherever emotions he had, it related to the prostate cancer, and that's what his attitude was like. Now, obviously, he got treated through the normal medical science that's out there, and it turned out okay for him. But yeah, I mean, that's the one thing we have to understand, that all our organs are related to some kind of emotion, and we have to be aware of that. It's not just treating the physical, it's the mental side that we have to be aware of. And the German new medicine, the approach with the German new medicine is that it's a biological shock to the body. And what you have to do is treat that biological shock, and if you treat that, chances are it's going to go away. And I think, and the one thing that I learned from that is to be aware, just to be aware of that, is that if somebody has a symptom, or a physical manifestation of something happening in their body, ask themselves, when did that happen? I mean, there's a girl that I was treating, Richard, and I want to use this as a bit, well, two people I want to pick your brain on regarding arthritis. One is the chap that I'm treating with down in the men's group, and hopefully the listeners will learn from this as well. The chap down in the men's shed, although I treated him and he feels much better, his neck is still stiff, so when he turns his body. He doesn't turn his head because there's obviously the arthritis is quite severe with him. And I'd like to try and start dealing with that where he can turn his head, sorry. The other one is a young girl that I know through a family member that's 27, but she's beginning to have severe arthritis. And I'm thinking, at the age of 27, that's madness. How do you go about treating that? And how often would you have to do it? Now, I've taken on board what you said and Clive de Carl said, and recommending that they get Celtic sea salt and Himalayan salt because it's full of magnesium, and chances are arthritis is a lack of magnesium in the body. So if you give your body what it wants, chances are it'll help and sort itself out. But is there any other things that I should be doing? Let's take Pete, for example. If I go down next week and I'm going to treat Pete and his neck is stiff and he's turning, what should I be doing? And for people that have bought a Pain Genie or are thinking about buying a Pain Genie, what should they be doing? What do I need to do?
Okay, well, I mean, obviously this can get quite in-depth, but there is a simple answer, thank God. The in-depth thing is obviously the training course, and for example, the first 2 or 3 hours, I think if you remember, we went through all the environmentals.
Yeah.
But if we just make it quite simple to start with, because really, by making it simple, we can explain most diseases or most blockages, why they're there. And so ultimately the body would, relatively speaking, like to be alkaline rather than acidic. So that means, for example, the blood should be about 7.365 on the pH scale. And if your blood goes, in other words, 7 on the pH scale is neutral, underneath 7 on the pH scale is acidic, and above 7 is alkaline. So the body likes to be mildly alkaline, including the blood. I mean, there's certain areas of the intestine that like to be acidic to break down food, etc., but typically you want to be alkaline. Now, most people's environment, and by environment I mean not just the Wi-Fi, the chemicals, the elastane in their clothing, all these kind of things that are affecting them, most people's environment is a acidic environment. In other words, the food they're eating as well. So you've got frankenfoods, you've got GM-modified foods, which are going to cause major problems. You've got all these other things. But really, if they can get the water right, so that in the test tube there is good quality, slightly alkaline water and Celtic sea salt, straight away you're going to rehydrate the body. And so beyond that, you can buy something like a big Berkey, for example, a gravity water filter. You can look at the work of Masaru Emoto, who filmed, for example, London tap water. He froze it, and you have these horrible black shapes. I think many of the listeners will be familiar with his work, Masaru Emoto. And when you then write the word love, for example, under that glass of London tap water and leave it for 20 minutes, and then refreeze it, you see this beautiful crystal. So we're talking with energetics that are beyond what we have seen in the physical realm. It's, in other words, we're getting into this realm of information technology which is affecting the body. So ultimately with water, quite simple. You want slightly alkaline, good quality, filtered water with no chlorine or fluoride in it. Ireland is obviously a major issue because it's fluoride, highly toxic. You had Ashling against fluoride and other people trying their best to get the fluoride removed. But if you get the water right, Celtic sea salt, you can write simple words, things like love, happiness, health, underneath your filter. You will start to structure and energize that water, which will be a factor of, 10 times more powerful. And a book for listeners to read is Dancing with Water, an amazing book. Just buy that book, follow that, and do to the water what the book says, which effectively is putting crystals in the water and writing these words underneath the filter. So if you're drinking that water and having the salt, immediately you've got the best environment for the body. Then when you're treating, say, with the Pain Genie as a major treatment modality, you're going to follow the basic instructions on the DVD or the members area, treating the spine. We call it the 3 pathways, fairly simple. And beyond that, when you talked about with your issues with the neck, there's a technique on the members area, which is called the little wings. Now, you may remember that briefly from the training, Alan,
yeah.
Steve. The little wing is going to unlock a lot of the problems to do with the way the head is sitting over the atlas axis on the spine. Yeah. There's a technique called the atlas prophylax, which you can have done. I think it costs a couple of £100. There's 2 treatments. We believe that we can do the same thing with the Pain Genie very, very quickly, virtually 4 or 5 treatments, moving the shoulder muscles around by having it on where the neck meets the shoulder, with the 2 settings called the AM and FM. And you're going to start moving and breaking down cell memory in the body. And that's going to move the muscles and start to realign the head and the whole of the spine. It's also going to kick in the craniosacral pump, and that pump is the kind of heartbeat of the spine. I mean, the reason why that things happen quickly with the Genie is it does most of it automatically. You're not even aware you're doing it. You just have to follow the particular techniques. But beyond that, and keeping it simple, another major area for treatment is the gut, is the abdomen. A lot of people have serious issues, and not just the acidity issues, because they can't break down their food properly. That means the stomach may not have the right kind of hydrochloric acid, pepsin. The pancreas might not be producing the right enzymes to break things down. Well, if you rub this device over your abdomen, it sticks over the liver, the abdomen, the abdominal area over the stomach, and that's an issue. And you treat it, automatically you're going to be starting to break down what food you're eating in a better fashion. So, obviously it's pretty much you are what you absorb. It's not so much what you can eat, it's what you can absorb. So the 4 stages of getting things into the body, which is ultimately what you are, it's building your own body and getting back to health, is you've got to put something bioavailable in your mouth to start with. So if you're putting a GM modified microwave crap in your mouth, well, you fall over the first fence without getting anywhere.
Yeah.
So first thing is, if you're getting good food in your mouth, so that means pretty much organic, staple food brought locally. Yeah. And then you're cooking it properly, or you're steaming it rather than boiling it. You're having it 50% raw. Then the second thing is, if you can break it down in the stomach. So you want to put good stuff in your mouth, then can your stomach break it down? Because if your stomach can't break it down, and guess what? You need things like Celtic sea salt to help the hydrochloric acid and things to work properly in your stomach. So this simple thing of Celtic sea salt is far, far more than just flavouring your food. It's got 72 minerals in it. It's got magnesium. It's got lots of amazing things. So that will help the stomach break things down. The Genie will find that too. The areas of blockage, it'll stick. And then, of course, once it's broken down and squirted into the small intestine as chaff, it then has to be absorbed through the small intestine. So if you can't absorb it because you've got loads of junk from, things you've eaten and the build-up of things like pasteurized dairy products, you're not going to be able to absorb the food. So, again, the health of your small intestine and your large intestine is going to very much define how you actually can absorb anything you put in your mouth and break it down properly. And then ultimately, once that's absorbed through the small intestine and some of it through the large intestine, then it has to be metabolized. And in Chinese medicine, usually the kind of main organ or scene of metabolism is to do with the thyroid and how the thyroid and the endocrine system works. So you've got 4 processes there. Now, all of those processes, apart from the first one, which is what you decide to put in your mouth and how you cook it, can be massively helped by using things like the Genie. Beyond that, of course, you can take enzymes. You can take pancreatic enzymes. You can take enzymes to help break your food down if your stomach and your pancreas aren't working properly. And most cancer therapies now are absolutely loading people with enzymes, because without enzymes you can't function. Even to talk or move your eye, you're using hundreds and hundreds of thousands of enzymes just to do that.
Well, funny you should say that, Richard, because the lady we have on next week is Bernadette Bowen, and she had breast cancer twice, and now she's big into natural foods, juicing and all that. So that's going to be a good interview next week. But she said the same thing about the enzymes, and she's big into juicing, and she said you have to be using a masticating juicer, and you have to take it within 20 minutes to get the maximum benefit of the juice and the enzymes in the juice. And once you give your body what it needs, and she's big into the raw food and stuff like that. She's not into the cooked food. And once you give your body what it needs, then she said that's half the battle is, dealing with
Can
the
I just say very, very quickly that we spoke about the masticating juicers a long time ago on the show, and they generally are a little bit more expensive than the fast juicers, as we call them. But Aldi, was it Aldi or Lidl, one of those shopping centres were actually doing slow juicers recently. I think they were selling them for €70. So well within people's budgets, I would think.
Brilliant, excellent. And if people can afford them, it'd be worthwhile doing it if you're introducing. Now, we will tell you, myself and Steve do have the juicers, and it can be a pain that you have to do all the cleaning all the time. And we've kind of hit that, for the first week or two it's great, and then you have to keep cleaning it and everything else, and then that kind of falls by the wayside. But the great thing is that it's always there for us to pull out and try if we want to do some juicing, like we have it if we want to do it. And that's the great thing. So, as Richard said, it's all down to the food as well. And not just the food, but, your mental approach to things as well. There's no point. The Pain Genie is great at what it does. But if you're treating people and these people are still going to go off and take fluoridated water and they're going to be taking microwave food and everything else, then I wouldn't really waste your time, because, the whole idea is that you have to kind of, make an effort yourself. And I think you'd probably agree with that, Richard. Is there a point because people will always want a quick fix. They're not prepared to make the effort. And, we have to keep away from the aspartames, the MSG, the fluoridated water, and try and eat as healthy as we can in the budget that we have.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really got me going, and when I kind of created Pain Genie about 9-10 years ago now, was I suddenly realized that because of the way this technology works, it does change consciousness for the better. Because you can describe consciousness in that way as the kind of a beautiful exchange of energy in between all the organ systems and the spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional. So when you start removing blockages, naturally you think better. And as many gurus have said, is that before you can think right, you have to eat right. But beyond that, you have to absorb things and get the body working properly. So I think that I've seen so many people that maybe, for example, they didn't want to get involved. They said, well, it's not in my reality, not a problem for me, I'm just going to get on with my life and whatever. And you try and tell them, well, you might ignore reality, but it certainly isn't going to ignore you. And ultimately, as people get more conscious, they naturally start investigating things that for example, your show, many people have heard things years ago and thought, oh, that's a bit far-fetched, that's a bit crazy. And then a year later, somebody else says something. Then a year later, somebody else says something. They go, something? There's something in this. They start looking at it. It's the time's right. But all I know from treating tens of thousands of people and seeing the results is that as you start, say, self-treatment with these kind of technologies, you do become more conscious. You start making better choices. So I had a guy quite a long time ago now who he'd had diarrhea for sort of like about 6 years. And he tried everything, and it was desperate, obviously. He'd lost a lot of weight. He was about 8.5, 9 stone. He was 14 stone before. And I gave him 2 or 3 treatments, and he kind of didn't have much money, so I ended up giving him the 3rd and maybe the 4th treatment free. And he was so kind of uncertain because he didn't have the money and didn't want to be taking from me. He was a lovely chap. But after that, he said, look, I can't afford it anymore. I don't need you to give me treatment for free, but thanks a lot. I do feel a bit better. But there we go. He couldn't carry on with it because he couldn't even afford to put the good things in his mouth, and he had many major problems with family, heroin, all these kind of difficult emotional conflicts. But I saw him about a year later. I was in a pub in South Coast in England, and this guy suddenly thumps me on the back, and I spun round thinking it's quite a whack, and there's this guy Sean there. I didn't recognise him. He said, Richard. He said, it's me. I said, it's Sean. It took me maybe 20, 30 seconds to realise who it was, because he was now 13, 14 stone. And he said, do you know something? After those treatments you gave me, I don't know if it was a treatment or what, but I just started to make better decisions. And I found out that certain things I was doing in my environment and things I was eating, I just suddenly found them, on the internet, and people just popped out of nowhere. So all I can say is, and it may sound a bit wacky, and as Einstein called it, spooky action at a distance, which is what the Spooky 2 is all about. But things start happening when your body resonates at a different frequency, and it's all harmonic. So I think for a lot of people who are into, for example, recently I was asked to go to Cyprus to treat somebody with I should say help somebody, because I'm not a medical professional in that way, so I make no, nothing what I'm saying has been cleared by the FDA in that way, although the scanner technology has actually been cleared by the FDA under license. But I was taken out there by a chap who wanted desperately to save his partner, who'd been given 3 weeks to live. And I said to him, look, I will come and do what I can, because I had to cancel all the stuff and then suddenly go out there and do something for 6 days. I said, but I'm only going to do it if you do A, B, and C, because otherwise I'm going to come out there, we're going to have all these questions. I said, you've got to want to do it. And he did. He did what we asked. He spent a considerable amount of money. We got stuff very quickly. We managed to short-circuit certain ways of getting stuff that would have taken longer. Went out to Cyprus, and the lady's still alive. Now, you can never say that's exactly what we did or not, but you can be fairly sure that with these technologies, you give someone every chance. But if they're not willing to even look at things or change things, which is what you were pertaining to earlier on, it just makes it an awful lot more difficult. So, I mean, I'd rather, like you, deal with people who actually want to be helped and realise, for example, that fluoride is bad. They want to look at that and understand and do some work. A lot of people now, they want to go to a doctor, get a magic bullet and take it and stop the acid reflux and take antibiotics. And then they're going to worry in 6 months' time why suddenly they're a lot worse now, and they might need surgery or something.
Yeah.
They've got to want to help themselves.
Exactly, and that's the crux. We all have to take responsibility for ourselves and make that choice. And that's part of growing up. That's part of becoming an adult, which is what we talk about on the show. It's taking personal responsibility, and society has to move that way as well, and not be relying on the nanny state to take care of us all the time. We have to take care of ourselves, and we have to start by, taking care of our health. Now, I do want to touch base on the Spooky 2, and the reason why I want to mention it is because I know you have a Spooky 2, and you had one or two comments that, when I would touch base with you before, you said you wanted to give it a mention, or, your experience with the Spooky 2. So if you want to throw that in there, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I got involved pretty much when it sort of came out, and I thought fantastic that they've now got proper Rife technology, because obviously, Royal Rife was doing amazing things with his understanding of frequency and radionics and what he was doing back in, almost 100 years ago now. So I really take my hat off to the team out there that are doing this great work. But there are a few, I suppose, caveats, I think, because the Spooky 2, it's relatively cheap now, and there's new add-ons that have come out which are a bit more expensive. I mean, $2,500 for the more plasma technology, but it's a really powerful system. And there are a few things. So when we talked about the body never doing anything to harm itself, so say we just talk about parasites briefly, because one of the big things behind things like chronic fatigue are things to do with parasitic infections that get out of hand. But ultimately, because the body is autocephalous, the body will manifest things to help itself if it needs it. So, for example, you might find that suddenly you have a parasite in the body that is hoovering up aluminium, for example. And, okay, well, where do you get aluminium? Well, in your tin foil. If you wrap your chicken in tin foil, you get massive amounts of aluminium in your chicken, which is terrible for you. You've got chemtrails dropping aluminium all over the place. You've got aluminium in, different types of tins and different products in deodorants. And when you look at the levels of aluminium, say, for example, generally around now, they're often hundreds of times higher than they should be. And the vaccine's aluminium again. So you've got a plethora of this stuff, and that's just one, let alone the mercury and thimerosal, etc. So if, for example, your body just cannot cope, it's going to do anything it can to look after you. So this is so important. This is why we do the training, to really get through to people that your body never does anything to harm you. Otherwise, we kind of wouldn't be here in the first place. So let's just say that the body can't deal with a build-up of aluminium because it's getting out of hand, and it can't buffer it, it can't lock it in tissue. The liver will lock it into things like gallstones and lock toxins into it as a way of removing it from the body. And then you get gallstones, and then if you can't pass them, you've got terrible pain. And, people have the gallbladder removed, for example, which is completely barking mad as well. 1 million gallbladders removed in America every year, £5,000 to £10,000 operation, and then they're on drugs the rest of their life, and they have major problems with, all the things that the gallbladder and the liver would do.
Can I just jump in there? I actually was treating a lady with a gallbladder problem with a spooky tooth during the week.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd throw that in. I haven't actually, she knows about the Pain Genie because I have treated her with the Pain Genie before. But I might consider the Pain Genie with the gallbladder problem if that comes up again.
Yeah, again, to get a combination, if you've got these technologies, put them together. So, so this aluminium, let's just say, for example, your body can manifest a fluke or a type of parasite that's good at hoovering up aluminium. It will do that. And in other words, a lot of people go, how on earth can it do that? Well, that's a bit more involved, but believe me, the body can manifest things or allow things to happen. This goes back to the work of things like Pasteur, who got it wrong and admitted so on his deathbed. In other words, pasteurization, about heating things up and killing all the good enzymes. And Beauchamp, who was very much believing that you didn't catch germs, but you could manifest them if your body was weak in certain ways, yeah? So let's say you've got a load of parasites that are hoovering up aluminium and they happen to be in your heart muscle, for example, yeah? Now, there will be a frequency for that parasite. So you can work out, there's different types of systems, the spooky 2, bioresonance systems, that work out a frequency for that parasite. So if, for example, you plug that frequency set into the spooky 2, and you play that frequency set, especially if you're holding onto the rods as you would do, and you suddenly blew up those parasites, yeah?
Yeah.
Then you could suddenly release massive amounts of aluminium into the system because the parasites die and they don't come out whole from the back passage, for example. You could suddenly release loads of aluminium in the body, which could cause you quite a problem. See what I mean?
Well, this is what I will say. John did say this, and David said it to us as well. If you're going to be running, this is why having 2 spooky 2s is handy, because you can run a killing program on one and a healing program on the other. Because if you only run the killing program or the detox and you don't have something clearing up the mess after the parasites are blown up, then obviously, as you said, it could cause a problem.
Yeah, and I think this is why if you're looking at the spooky, I would say that the best way to start using it are things like doing lymph drainage to start making the body's cleansing systems more robust.
Yeah.
Before you start killing things. You see, if you look at the major people with parasites, probably the major person in the world probably is Dr. Klinghardt, yeah?
Yeah.
And anyone can search for him, Dr. Klinghardt, on the web. Amazing chap, involved with so many things. But there's so many other ones. Dr. Sutter, Dr. Holder Clark was amazing, Dr. Morse. There's so many people looking at parasite cleanses, and it's a major part if the parasites have got out of hand. Now, if they're there to help you, in other words, how would you know? So I would rather start off using the spooky for lymph drainage, to start fortifying the body, and use the Pain Genie to actually find blockages and start getting the body working better. In other words, for example, if you come along and you've got a parasite, say, in the small intestine, it will mean at an energetic level that the small intestine is not the right frequency, because if it was the right frequency, the terrain of the body would not support you having a parasite. So the analogy for that is like if you're walking over a hill, say in Ireland, and you see a rabbit hole, you go, okay, I can recognize a rabbit hole because I know what it looks like. And you might see 3 rabbit holes, or 4. Now, you can't be sure that a rabbit's living in those holes, can you? Because the rabbit may have gone on holiday, got shot by the farmer, got myxomatosis. There could be one rabbit living in one hole, and the other holes, there could be a vole, a stole, a vole.
That's a new animal there.
There could be there could be a weasel, a stoat, it could be many things living in the hole.
Yeah.
The major thing was the rabbit did the damage in the first place. So rather than a rabbit, think of glyphosate, think of the elastane in your clothing, think of the mercury causing those holes in the body. Now, if you come along and just wipe them out, which a spooky will do very effectively, you still haven't changed the terrain. Yeah. In other words, you see these people go on an anti-candida diet for like a year, 2 years, and they feel good, they're a lot thinner than they were, and they say, oh, I'm done well now, and they have 2 donuts, and within 2 days, they're back to square one. They can't believe it.
Well, this goes back to what we're saying is if people aren't prepared to try and make a change in their lifestyle, then what's the point in doing the treatment?
Yeah, they've got to understand a bit more, making the body simple. So, in other words, if we can get the blockages removed in the body, which of course things like the genie will do very quickly, then you're naturally taking care of the inner terrain. In other words, if we fill those holes in the hill, we just fill the holes in, we put the frequency back, say, to the small intestine, it doesn't matter whether it's a rabbit, a vole, a stoat, a weasel, a mouse, a rat. Once the hole's filled in, things can't live in those holes.
Yeah.
So the body starts naturally flushing them out. Now, Dr. Klinghardt, who did his thesis about parasites, spent a long time in India, and I really recommend you look at some of his work. He was showing you that what you want to try and do with parasites, for example, is try and remove them whole from the body and maybe even alive. In other words, you make the terrain so unfriendly in the body that parasites say, and I've had enough of this, I'm getting out of here. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are ways of doing things. And I think the spooky technology, it's amazing that it's now available for most people to buy and do stuff. I just say that people have to really do a bit of work looking at the power of this stuff because, I'm sure 99% of the time they're going to do some amazing stuff. I had one experience with a girl I put on the spooky who was already, her colon was fairly, there was quite a few issues with it. And I decided to try and cut the treatment short, and she said, no, I want to carry on, and I should have cut the treatment short. I shouldn't have listened to her, and I carried on against my, and she did have a problem because the body went in such a detox, her body wasn't capable of actually dealing with the detox. So I think you just have to, get involved with this stuff and look at some of the, they're not negative side effects, they're just effects that could affect you for a while in a negative fashion, unless you look at a bit more in depth.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think people have to study the science and not just get the product and start trying it. Try and understand the science and what's going on. Richard, we have loads of questions that I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Now, we do want to touch base on vaccines as well, but let's go through the questions first and then we'll get back to that. Steve.
Okay. In no particular order, you spoke earlier, Richard, about the gallbladder, and if someone, let's say, was diagnosed with an issue with their gallbladder and had to have it removed, I do know that there are some effects or after effects of having the gallbladder removed with weight gain and stuff like that. Is the Pain Genie? Would it be recommended to treat gallbladder symptoms as well, instead of going under the knife? And if so, what would you recommend?
Well, on our level 2 course, we actually have an hour session on how actually to remove gallstones using the Genie, which may sound crazy, but the Russians have been doing it for 30 years now. It's a well-proven technique. But I would suggest this, for those people who've had the gallbladder removed, luckily the body has a virtual gallbladder. In other words, if someone loses their leg, they can still feel pain in the leg because the body has a template of the leg. There's a virtual leg there, if you like. So the good news is, even if you've had your gallbladder removed, the body has a virtual one, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But the issue is that if you look at any issue for the body, all dis-ease, all uneasiness is caused by blockage. So the more blockages you can remove, and you can do a lot of that, say, with the Genie, and getting the food right, getting Celtic sea salt, getting the water, taking Wi-Fi out of your environment, taking in the last 80 years, I think there's over 100,000 new chemicals being introduced into the food supply and into fabrics. And 50,000 are used at the moment in the US in different products to do with the food and fabrics, of which something like only 300 have been tested. It's almost laughable, and only 5 have been banned. So when you see the plethora of toxins, in other words, we're not sick, we're toxic, and emotions are toxic too, you've got to do a bit of work, look at the toxins that can be around, clean up your environment, take care of the Wi-Fi, typically have it turned off. If you treat yourself with the Genie, I would imagine that you will do a pretty good job of removing blockages anyhow. Beyond that, with the gallbladder liver, there's a book called The Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush by Andreas Moritz. Look at, say, Dr. Sutter on YouTube, Sutter. Look at funny enough, he has a gallbladder cleanse, which involves 4 ounces of Coca-Cola that's natural Coca-Cola, not the rubbish that it's all rubbish really, but not the rubbish that's got the aspartame and the zero, calories in it. The normal Coke shaken up, 4 ounces of that, so you've taken the carbonate, decarbonated it, put 4 ounces of virgin organic olive oil and 2 ounces of fresh, pure organic lemon juice, and drink it at night. You lie on your right-hand side for half an hour to let the stomach flushes from left to right. So if you lie on your right-hand side, all the stuff will flush from the stomach down to the gallbladder and the liver, which will get all those wonderful items into it, which will loosen the stones, start breaking things down. And then after half an hour, you lie on your left-hand side for about 15 minutes, which means that now the liver's going to flush, because the liver flushes from right to left. And then just lie on your back and maybe make sure there's a toilet nearby, and all these things might happen in the morning. But you can start doing all these things, and you can just Google on it. Look for amazing liver and gallbladder flush. There's loads of different protocols out there. A lot of very simple. But if you do that and treat yourself with a genie, we find we get amazing results, and usually we're finding there's no surgery involved. It depends on the level. If you get a massive, say, 2 centimeter stone, then you can break it up. You can break it up using these techniques. Whether that's enough to stop you needing surgery at that level, or using ultrasound to break it down, it depends on how solid the stones are. But certainly, if you haven't tried this first, you need to before you go anywhere near a knife. That's my recommendation.
A lot of great information there, and as you say, I mean, anyone who is interested in different alternative therapies, there's a lot of information available, reputable information available for free on the internet. And like you're talking about the liver flush there, there's information, and it's there for the taking. People cannot say in this day and age, oh, I wouldn't know where to go, I don't know where to get the information, or I wouldn't know what to do. The information is there. People are giving it away for free, and a lot of people think, well, if it's given away for free, then it's obviously worth nothing. But there's a lot of people giving a lot of life-saving advice away for free.
You know what we say about ignorance being a choice now, with the amount of information out there, and that's what it is. We got another question in there from PIR Steve, but we want to get through the questions, so we try and get through them. We're just keeping an eye on the time there, Richard. Rich. Or Steve.
Elastane. We spoke about elastane earlier, and I remember from the Pain Genie course level 1, you did talk about elastane, and I wasn't aware of it at that particular time. I am now, and have educated people on it. But for those who are uneducated, Richard, can you just give us a very, very quick 101 on elastane, where it's found, and what it basically does?
Well, I was made aware of this by a remarkable chap called Tony Hughes, Natural Medicine Clinic. I know you've had him on OYM before, and he's a biochemist and does a lot of clever stuff with energetics as well. And being a biochemist, he understands the chemical toxicity of different substances. And he's found that an increasing number, originally I think it was called spandex, and it's the stuff that makes things stretchy. And he found that it has multiple effects in the body, including things, causing infertility, toxicity in the body where the body cannot flush things out properly and it builds up in cells. So, for example, my own daughter, when she was 16, which is 6-7 years ago now, her hair started falling out. She had a big clump on the right-hand side. She had beautiful, long, thick hair, and there was a big clump suddenly fell out, and she was beside herself, and so was I. And I was running scans on her and things, and I knew it was a chemical thing, but I couldn't actually, break it down. So I got in touch with Tony. He did an analysis and broke it down to elastane. And what she was wearing, and you see so many of the girls wearing them these days, the long kind of black tight things they wear? They're very stretchy.
Yeah. Leggings.
Leggings, that's right, leggings. I knew there was a technical term for it.
Yeah.
And we found that in her leggings was 25% elastane. And they changed the formula from the spandex. And so we got all natural cotton things for her, put her on a detox for the elastane, and you can search online for these detoxes. Things like organic sulfur, by the way, are absolutely amazing to detox 146 different things from the body, including things like helping getting rid of glyphosate, which is a horrible thing to do with Monsanto's Roundup product. It will help get elastane out of the body, help getting mercury out of the body. A very, very simple thing to do. But within 2 months of getting on the detox, the hair grew back again. But can you imagine if she'd gone to the allopathic medical doctor route, she'd have ended up, God knows what would have happened. They put her on different drugs, and they wouldn't have got the cause, would they?
Yeah.
They just wouldn't have got the cause. So you have to be, you have to do a tiny bit of work on this. But certainly, search online for these things. You will see massive amounts, and I'm sure Tony Hughes has probably information on his website too about this. But beyond that, anyone wants more information, please just email me at richard@paingenie.net, and I will send you some good stuff back.
And for those who may be wearing one this evening, I am not one of them. Bra, elastane is in a lot of the ladies' undergarments as well. And if you just check on the label, it does actually say on the label, because we actually seen that in proof at the Pain Genie. One of the ladies had a brassiere, and she was kind enough to show us. This.
I thought you were going to say she was kind enough to take it off.
No, she showed us. She showed us the label, and it did actually say elastane, and she was suffering with some of the conditions, and that Tony Hughes had directly related to elastane. So I think at that moment in time she whipped it off, and anyway,
that was it.
Yeah. Where else?
Just very briefly. I mean, the crazy thing here is, if you look at women's underwear, especially knickers and bras, there is. I mean, you don't really want 2 or 3% elastane, but you'll find 5 or 10%. And then you've got women's bras also with the metal underwiring. And the metal acts like an antenna for the Wi-Fi, so they get the elastane, and it bangs the Wi-Fi signal back through their breasts as well, which is giving a big, again, rise to things like breast cancer, breast problems, and blocking conflict resolution, because you need energy to resolve conflicts. And the more elements you have that pull voltage from the body, the more likely you are to manifest that disease quickly.
Absolutely, and grounding as well. We've done a lot. We talked before about grounding, and I think that's quite beneficial too. If people haven't heard of it, go out into the garden barefoot on a nice day and just ground yourself, because that will discharge a lot of the negativity from the body as well.
Absolutely, and simple as well. Get your feet in the sea or in a river.
Yeah. Okay, Sam has a question. Sam says, I have a Pain Genie. Can Richard give me some hints on how I can use it on my friend who has a big unsightly cyst on his face? He is on antibiotics, but it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. The cyst is near his eye. He understands the Pain Genie doesn't work for everything, but he's wondering, do you have any thoughts on a cyst?
Well, I think you've got to keep this simple. And I mean, why do you get spots and rashes and cysts? That's the body expelling stuff it doesn't want in the body. Yeah. So again, on the things like a training course, we talk about Herring's law, how the body heals. You heal from the head downwards, internal organs outwards and backwards in time. And the skin is the biggest organ of the body, and it's also one of the biggest detoxifiers. So if he's got a cyst, that's the body getting rid of stuff. If it's around his eye, you've got to look at, for example, to be more in depth, a lot of eye issues are down to things like the liver, the pancreas, and so he might well have some liver toxicity. Again, you've got to keep everything pretty simple. Good quality water, Celtic sea salt, basic treatment. As we show on the members area, keep the 3 pathways, do the 6 points on the face, treat the abdomen. If he's on antibiotics, they will have huge impacts, because as the name states, antibiotics is anti-life. It's going to wipe out good flora and bad flora in the gut. So we need to repopulate with good gut flora, but also make sure we take the glyphosate out, because the glyphosate will chelate different minerals and stop them being available to the body. I would stick him on something like a simple detox program. I'd give him something like F2 or F3 from BlueDragonEssentials.com. It's the most amazing food supplement, very, very powerful. That's F2 or F3 from BlueDragonEssentials.com. I would get him to drink lots of water. Keep maybe one treatment every 2 or 3 days, and keep treatment time small. In other words, Chinese medicine often is less is more. So look at the members area. Think about treating the inside of the arm, as we show on the members area in the training. Just keep it simple. You will unblock a lot of meridians there. You'll allow the body to start working more efficiently. And the most important thing is that if he is actually on the antibiotics, first of all, what's he on the antibiotics for? But things like colostrum, If you take colostrum, we know that colostrum heals leaky gut. So for those people with IBS, with Crohn's, with all those things, good quality organic colostrum. You can go to Surthrival.com and other good companies. that will do huge things of healing the gut. But likewise, if you rub the genie over the gut and say it sticks at a certain point, which is called the ileocecal valve, which is just below the liver on the right-hand side, the ileocecal valve has a major place to play in the health of the whole body, especially the gut, because it's the valve that stops the backflow from the large intestine into the small intestine. Now, if that valve is compromised, if the polarization of those cells has changed and there's a blockage there, then you're going to have stuff. It's a bit like stuff overflowing from your toilet onto the floor. You know, the whole house is going to stink after a while. So often within 1 or 2 quick little treatments over that area, your ileocecal valve is actually now working an awful lot better, if not perfectly. And that can change the whole health of the gut, literally in a few treatments. So again, combination. Keep it simple, get the water right, find out why he's on antibiotics, has he been on them for long, what's he on them for, get the food right, good quality food, use enzymes, pancreatic enzymes, and use enzymes to break down the food, because the chances are the reason they got in this place in the first place is the environment that they're living in, and the fact they're not getting the minerals from the food. Remember, it's what you put in your mouth has to be good, stomach has to break it down, small intestine has to absorb it, then you've got to metabolize it. So metabolism, a lot to do with the thyroid. You're treating the body, it's sticking, you don't know it's the thyroid meridian, but you treat it, suddenly the thyroid's working better, you're breaking your food down better. You've got to get the minerals in the body. Again, what I'd suggest is to have baths, get a big hot bath. If you've got fluoride in the bath, put a good 2 teaspoons of boron in, that will neutralize the fluoride. If it's a hot bath, the chlorine 11 parts per million will evaporate off. Tip in a whole kilo of Celtic sea salt and 2 cups of Epsom salts, and tell him to get in that bath at least every 2 days and stay in the bath, don't wash, and just get in the bath for 20-25 minutes, hot as he can. He will reabsorb most of the good minerals and things through his skin, and that will push him on again with things like the genie, colostrum, F2 or F3, and good food.
A lot of great information there. You did say, Richard, that a lot of the good information is available for those who do have a Pain Genie on the members area. So if you do have a Pain Genie, if you don't have access to the members area, obviously just send Richard an email, and I'm sure Richard will be able to sort that out for you. But yeah, some great information. And boron is also known as borax. It's one of the same, Richard. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And you can take that internally as well in small quantities. Is that also true?
You can, yeah.
And what benefit would that be in small quantities? What will that do for you?
Well, I mean, again, it's an interesting one, but for arthritis, because I forget the exact countries, but I think that is it the highest or the lowest rate in the world? I think the lowest rate of arthritis in the world is, I think, Israel, and I think they have the highest rates of boron in the soil. And the highest rate of, or the opposite of that, is in a country with the lowest rate of boron in the soil. So again, boron is a great neutralizer. Like anything, remember, any suggestions I'm giving you is not cleared medically, so you just look at it and do your own work and research. But I think you'll find that all the research shows that you can put that into neutralized fluoride, and it is a great thing to help neutralize certain acidity problems in the body, if you like. So again, very good for arthritis.
Okay. Moving on, because I know we are pushed for time. Graham says his wife got a lot of comfort from a TENS machine, which she applied. He said the vibrations are sent into the body parts that are painful. Pain Genie sounds very similar. Now, I have said to Graham, they kind of do sound similar. However, it's all based on the frequencies that the Pain Genie uses. Can you just give Graham just a quick rundown on the main differences between the two?
Yeah. Well, basically, TENS is a technology that, I mean, I would say ultimately, and this is what I've been told, but it's what I have discerned myself, ultimately could be quite dangerous. Now, the reason for that is, again, people do their own research, is that TENS is the electrical equivalent of a medical allopathic drug, if you like. All medical drugs have LD50 ratings to show how much of that basically used on animals will kill a person. Yeah. In other words, they have toxicity issues, and they deal with symptoms, not causes. A TENS machine emits one low-level impulse, which effectively interferes with the synaptic transfer of pain. It's called the gate theory. So if you think of it, for most people I've talked to anyhow, TENS sometimes can be marginally effective, often not effective in many cases. You can buy a TENS machine for 20 quid and up to £1,000. You can buy them. The information I've been given is that they ultimately have a lot of issues, and that's mainly because a TENS, it sends out one signal that tries to interfere with the synaptic transfer of pain. Now, that pain signal is there for a reason. It's not pleasant, but it's there telling you there's a problem. And if you remember the last time we talked, my analogy was, a farmer's knocking on your door, knocking on your door, saying, "Oh, mate, your kitchen's on fire, and you just turn the TV up so you can't hear him, right?" Well, TENS is a bit similar, because it's blocking that synaptic transfer of pain signal, which is there for a reason. So if you turn it off, effectively, your house is going to burn down eventually. But the Pain Genie is completely different. I mean, one person compared the TENS technology to the genuine scanner technology in the Pain Genie as comparing a pair of roller skates with a space shuttle or a Ferrari. And that's because what the Genie does, every impulse is different. It finds the problem by sticking to the cause of the problem or causing a sensation, and then it goes into a biofeedback. So every signal is different from the previous one. The body cannot adapt to it. And there's this biofeedback, and in the biofeedback, the body releases these neuropeptides, which are the main healing compounds of the body. It's your own internal pharmacy of bioactive compounds. In other words, if you were really healthy, and most people are zapping 10,000 cancer cells an hour, the body's just doing it naturally. It's the natural process. But when you get blocked, then this process starts turning off. The blockages don't allow that process to work. TENS, if you're getting some benefit from it, then that's okay, I suppose, but I would not continue to use TENS because, again, it's just blocking the symptom. It's not dealing with the cause.
I kind of say about the TENS machine that it acts like a painkiller. That, for a period of time you'll be okay, but the pain's going to come back because it's not treating it. It's only hiding.
You're just dealing with the symptom. I mean, for example, you could have lower back pain, and the cause is say in the wrist. You run the Genie over the wrist, it sticks to the wrist. You found the problem. You run it down the back, doesn't stick to the back over the pain, but you run it over the arm, it sticks. Yeah. So I think you're right. The TENS is like an electronic drug, if you like. Yeah. And it's dealing with a symptom, the pain, not the cause, what's generating the pain.
Yeah. Okay, Steve, got more questions there.
We do, yeah. Serapeptase, Richard, you mentioned that at the training course, and you gave a talk on serapeptase and the benefits of it. And I started taking serapeptase. I suffered past tense with sinus problems, and I took your advice and I said I'll give this serapeptase a go and see what happens. So I started taking the serapeptase, and obviously the sinus problems disappeared. And I also used to have a creaky knee, as what I used to call it. It used to act up every now and again, and that pain went away also from using the serapeptase. I then passed this information on to everyone that I know, including my sister. And my sister, again, she suffered with chronic sinus problems, as did my brother. They both started taking the serapeptase, and neither of them have looked back. They've never had any issue now with the sinus. And it goes on and on and on. My brother spoke with someone else who suffered. They started taking it. No more sinus problems. So if anyone is listening who does suffer with sinus problems, can you just give us a quick one-on-one on the serapeptase?
Yeah, I mean, the serapeptase is an enzyme from the silkworm, and it's got a natural enzyme. And effectively what it does, it attacks anything that's acidic and inflamed in the body. So when I say attack, I mean it basically dissolves it. So serapeptase will dissolve scar tissue, for example. So for those girls who've had a cesarean and have multiple muscle layers that are cut, we have protocols in our training course, for example, that go through how you deal with that. And one of the things in the protocol is not just treating with the Genie, it's serapeptase, the water, the salt, different things involved, essential oils. And the combination is absolutely phenomenal. As these listeners have been saying, even taking one of these things can deal with a lot of inflammatory problems. But there's basically, it just goes through the body, finds things that are inflamed, and it dissolves them. It dissolves scar tissue. Scar tissue is a major issue because the body, that 50 to 100 trillion cells you have, are all like capacitors and batteries. And if they've got the wrong voltage, they will not function. If you remove blockages and you change the voltage, it's like putting 12 volts in your car battery. Suddenly your car starts, where if it had 6 volts, you couldn't even turn the thing over. So serrapeptase, by eating internal scar tissue, and this could be scar tissue in your liver where you've had liver inflammation for a long time, and you've got scarring, fibrosis in the liver. When you take the serrapeptase, especially in combination with things like Gini treatment, you get what we call a double whammy. You get 1 + 1 is not 2, it's 11. And the serrapeptase will start eating that scar tissue, and therefore the cells that were now blocked and not getting their voltage because they weren't able to communicate with each other are now communicating, and the voltage starts returning to normal. Therefore, the inflammation, which is a natural process of healing, inflammation is to raise voltage to get the healing done, turning the cell from minus 25 millivolts to minus 50 millivolts. The serrapeptase will massively help clear up inflammation in the body. And again, it's relatively cheap. You can now get it 250,000 IUs. And I had amazing stories with that as well. There was one guy who was in his 80s. He had an inhaler on him all the time, and he said if he didn't have his inhaler, he'd be dead. Uses it 4 or 5 times a day. He couldn't afford to buy a Genie, but I said to him, tell you what, just go and buy the serrapeptase, make sure you buy 3 tubs. And I said, do 250,000 IUs 3 times a day. Well, I saw him a week later. He said, I can't believe it. I haven't used my inhaler for 2 days. I mean, incredible, isn't it? And yet, if you looked at the drugs that they use for things like that and the inhalers that are repeat customers for life pretty much, I mean, something like 3 months treatment would give you probably a lifetime's worth of serrapeptase.
It's funny, I think I don't know what I said to Steve, but I was saying it to someone. Isn't it amazing that if you ask the majority of people that you come across, is your body perfect or do you have any problems? Guaranteed they will say, I have a problem with X, Y, and Z. You know that TV program, Embarrassing Bodies, where they do the road show and everybody goes in. And it's just amazing how many people say, I have a problem with X, Y, and Z. Just, very rare do you come across somebody go, oh, well, my body's perfect, I'm fine, nothing wrong with me. Oh, that's what they might think as well. But okay, let's shoot on, because we do want to get the vaccine part discussed as well. Steve?
Yeah, I just want to mention as well, serrapeptase for any woman. I know when Richard spoke about meridians in the body and all that, and the lines and the voltages, any woman who has had a cesarean section, it will be obviously beneficial for the internal scar tissue on that as well. Richard, would that be fair to say?
Absolutely, and then remember, a cesarean will cut through at least 4 or 5 meridians.
Yeah.
And then cause it's a bit like having a root canal or a mercury amalgam in your mouth. When you block that meridian, you then cause low voltage, and then you could get a problem somewhere else, which then the medics come in and they give you something for that. But in fact, it's the fact you've got a scar somewhere, for example.
Yeah. Karen Quinn Tostado in Oregon. Karen says, can you use the pain genie twice? Once for killing, followed up by healing with the same one. I'm guessing what she means is if you have like an issue, can you use the issue or use the pain genie to cure yourself and obviously to kill something that inside you that may be causing the problem?
Well, I think there may be a slight mix up between something like radionics and the spooky kind of system where you're sending a destructive frequency through of a parasite or a fluke or a worm or something like that. The difference, I would rather do it this way. When you start removing blockages and you change the internal harmonics of the meridian systems, the chakras, the nadis, then the body naturally does what it does best. It naturally gets rid of things that shouldn't be there. In other words, if those flukes that you had were living in holes in the body caused by mercury or glyphosate or elastane or whatever, and you remove the blockages and allow the voltage of those cells to come back to normal, the body will naturally get rid of those flukes. They will no longer be necessary. In other words, your road to health is by removing blockages, and as you remove blockages, you change cell voltage. So there's a great book by people like Dr. Jerry Tennant, Voltage Healing is Voltage, for example, and you go into all these understanding of voltages. So it's not actually killing something per se, but a very quick example. I was treating a girl who had giving a treatment she had cancer and many other problems 12 to 13 years ago now, and on about the 5th or 6th treatment, she got up, suddenly ran to the toilet and slammed the door, and there was a scream, and I thought, oh my God, what's happened to her? What's going on? And she was in the loo for some time. I'm sorry to bring that up, but at 15 minutes, she came back. She looked very white and a bit shaky, and she came and sat down. I said, "What's the problem?" And she said, "I can't believe it." I said, "Well, what?" She said, "You won't believe what just came out of my backside." Now, what had happened was, by removing the blockage, we changed the internal terrain of the body. The worms that had been living in her intestine didn't like that, and then wanted to come out. So she and these things were swimming around in the toilet bowl.
Wow.
So it's a different way of looking at it, rather than, and I'm not knocking the spooky part, I think it's a fantastic bit of kit, but there's different ways of doing it, and ultimately is to use each bit of technology or essential oil, whatever for the main purposes, and put it together. So I think what you'll find is that when the body comes back to the right harmonics, the right voltage, the right frequency, the different meridian systems, and the cells repolarize and re-energize, the body will naturally try and get rid of things that it doesn't want. If then you still have issues, then of course you can start using wormwood. You can start using, liver flushes. I would recommend for everyone liver flush anyhow. Why not? The liver is getting highly toxic with what we're putting into it. So I think slightly different way of looking at it.
Okay, listen, we have about 10 minutes left, and I do want to talk about vaccines, HPV and all the rest, because it's quite controversial at the moment with what's going on in Ireland, because the Vax team are now over here, or if they're not over here, they're planning to come over here, and they're going to be, showing the movie. If it's not been shown already, I think it was May 5th, funny enough, Friday,
correct,
wasn't it?
Yep.
Friday just gone, they played the movie over here. And just give us your take on you're a dad and a family man as well, Richard. Give us your take on what you think of the vaccines.
Well, I mean, I go along with what Dr. James Shannon said. He was the doctor in charge of the National Institutes of Health, and he said the only safe vaccine is a vaccine that is never used.
Okay, well that makes sense. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think again, if you go back to look at where we've come with vaccines and immunization, as they call it, in different way of looking at it, I think we're putting the cart before the horse in many ways, and we're not allowing the natural frequency and vibration of the body, a strong immune system, or perhaps we should say a strong support system that allows the body to naturally cleanse itself and stay healthy. And so I've got documents on my computer that we give out at training and we send out to people. I mean, I've got hundreds of documents. I mean, literally hundreds, thousands of doctors, thousands of immunologists from around the world saying, don't use vaccines. I don't use vaccines. The issue I think we come to, I mean, for example, Christine and myself have not had our two children vaccinated. They're perfectly healthy. When I found out how bad they were, and my Charlie, my other daughter, when she was about 9, we had nothing done since she was 9. I think people have to look at it. The issue is, I think, as you found out, Alan, is that when you talk to a lot of people, they're completely just mad and almost manic about it, shouting at you, but they won't look at any of the evidence.
Yeah,
they're so programmed, and you see, look at Irish radio, look at the health system in Ireland. They're going all the time about Gardasil and HPV, and yet they know now that it's so unsafe, just that one vaccine, and yet they're coming out all the time, have the flu shot, have this, and yet there's a mounting amount of evidence saying it's not safe. Now, this is their own evidence. So if you look at a meta-analysis done by double-blind placebo-controlled trials that was done in the States about 8-9 years ago, and people like Dr. Gary Null were involved in this, they found that a minimum 65% of all these double-blind trials were fraudulent. And this is the stuff and this is in the public domain.
And I believe, and I said this on the show with the Suzanne and Polly, that something in the back of my mind is telling me that the drug trials are different to vaccine trials. The drug trials are more stringent, where the vaccine trials are not as stringent. And as far as I'm concerned, if one person is damaged by a vaccine, that's where it should stop. But for them to turn around and go, well, it'd be just a percentage of people, it won't be that many.
You have to break a few eggs, to make the omelette. Yeah.
Exactly. If one person is damaged, take it off the market. It should not be used. It should be tested again. But this kind of belief system where vaccines are what we need and they're safe. I'm sorry, I can't go with that. For myself anyway, and I'm sure Steve is in the same boat.
Well, I mean, I just read another comment. I mean, I've got so many things that, you know, I can, if people want it, I can, it's on the net. You know, if you're discerning, you can find this stuff. I mean, another comment, vaccination is not necessary, not useful, does not protect. There are twice as many casualties from vaccination as from AIDS. This is a Dr. Medical Gerhard Buchwald from West Germany, specialist of internal diseases and participant in 150 trials of vaccination victims. You know, it just goes on and on. And it's all over the place, and yet, you know, I think it come back to that saying of that 18th century philosopher. He said there are three things about the truth. The first of all, it will be opposed. Secondly, it will be ridiculed. And thirdly, it'd be accepted as though everyone knew it all along. Mm. But I just say to people, look, if you don't want to do the work yourself, you can't complain when you're affected by it.
Yeah, exactly. You have to do the research. But again, it's not so much the people not doing the work. It's they are convinced and brainwashed that the doctors know everything and they have all the answers.
And they won't even look at the evidence, even if it's right in front of them.
Well, no, they won't look at the evidence because at the end of the day, they are brainwashed to believe that the doctors are always right. You know, and we all grew up like that. Before we all woke up, we all grew up to believe that the doctors had the answers, but it's not until you go into the actual doctor surgery and they'll say, well, what's wrong with you? And you tell them and they'll go onto Google and start Googling it. I mean, you can do that yourself. Now, I don't mind going to a doctor for a second opinion, but just, that's all I'd be getting is a second opinion. I wouldn't be actually, insane. I'd be going what he said. You know, he might turn around and say you might have to get X, Y, and Z drug. Well, I'd be going, well, how can I do this naturally without going near the drugs?
Yeah, and I think the good, you know, let's face it. I mean, medical doctors, irrespective of what we know about the health system and the way it's run, they're pretty good at diagnosis in many ways. So, you know, I think everyone, if they've got an issue, why not go and have a diagnosis? You can decide what you want to do. But just another quote here. And this is, again, a top German doctor. And, you know, Germany leads the way in many things. It says, I once believed in Jenner. I once believed in Pasteur. I believed in vaccination. I believed in vivisection. But I changed my views as the result of hard thinking. Dr. Hadwin, medical doctor. Again, you know, there's so many of them. And you know as well as the listeners know how many doctors have been persecuted and struck off. And then found to be completely exonerated, and yet you don't see it in the papers.
Well, they're still being ridiculed, even, you know, struck off and ridiculed. I mean, we have it here. We talked about it. And one of the things I said when we had Susanna Polly on was, even if we were arguing over whether straight bananas or bent bananas were better, I still want to hear the argument. I want to hear both sides of the argument. You know, there's the pro-vaccine people who'll agree that vaccines are good for you, and of course the anti-vaccine people. And what I'm saying is, I want to hear both sides, and I want to make my mind up. And if there's a group of people over here stopping me from hearing the other side of the argument, then that is a red flag to me.
Exactly, and I think, but this is when, you know, we realise that people lack consciousness anymore. They've given the responsibility to the state. You know, there is a citizen of a corrupt state and a corrupt medical system, effectively, that rewards doctors for towing the line. And so many times you see time and time after again, you get a whistleblower who's only trying to warn patients of what's going on. They end up losing their jobs.
Yeah, and it's just funny that, again, going back to the fact that we need to see both sides of the argument to make a choice. And if these people who are trying to stop, I mean, I feel, I can't believe that these people are out there trying to make a judgment call for me, saying, oh no, you're not able to make a judgment call on this, or we're going to do it for you, and we're going to stop any information that goes against what we believe. We're going to stop you from seeing that, so you can only see one side of the argument. How arrogant is that for these people to do that?
Well, it's incredible. And just look at the US. I mean, my information is that by the time a child is 16, they've had 72 mandatory vaccinations. and they wonder why sperm counts and no one's fertile anymore. The fertility rates are dropping through the floor.
Yeah.
And you just look at the toxic mess. I mean, this is why, we really put this in our training courses. We spend 2, 3, 4 hours sometimes on the first day going through the environment because, if you're not aware what's out there that can kill you, and no one's going to tell you unless you know where to look, and shows like yours, you've just got to know it. And unfortunately, we're just living in, I think the Vedas talked about these end days we're now living in as a time when you wouldn't know truth from falsehood.
Well,
and indeed, what top guy from the American think tank, or I think it was a CI or something like that, said we will have only succeeded when the American people believe everything that's false is true.
Yeah, and we've mentioned as well, people should be looking at the Soylent Green movie, because that's based on 2022 when the food is not real food. And it's just so uncanny that was made in 1973, and here we are, we having food that's not real food. But Richard, we've hit that time, and again, a big thank you for coming on. We're going to do another one of these shows again, because it's always great talking to you about the health and about, things that we can learn about and what's going on. And we appreciate your time coming on. And we're in contact anyway. And we didn't even get around to, William Reich and the Orgone Energy. We haven't even talked about that. And we're going to have to do that another time. But, thanks again for coming on. I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve's going to get all your details on any, training courses that you're going to do. And, we'll get all that information off you, Steve.
Yeah, great information as usual. Richard. A lot of good information for people to digest and whet their appetites for more of the same. We do have the link there to the website paingenie.com, but I know you have a lot more links that you want to probably give out there to people as well. So I pass the floor over to you.
Well, I just mentioned that we've got an upcoming training course, what we call a level 1 foundation course. We call it Energy Medicine with the Pain Genie, and put a lot into it. That's on the 26th and 27th of May at the Birmingham Buddhist Centre in the UK. And I'd like to, for any two particular OYM listeners who want to come on that and are a bit strapped for cash, please get in touch by email to richard@paingenie.net, and we're going to do you a really special deal. But if you want to come on the training, we still have places available. It's got a lot of fun. You get a lot of treatment, a lot of understanding, and information about that can be found either email me or look at one of our websites called 21st Century EnergyMedicine.com. That's 21ST for 21st Century EnergyMedicine.com. Please look at paingenie.com for testimonials and things from doctors and users. And you can also look at a website called Health Genius. I think it's healthgenius.uk, where we run training courses, different types of training courses. Any other comments or things people want more information, please email me, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can.
Well, I want to touch base with you, Richard, in the next few days I will do, because, we might have a meeting coming up, which was going to be organised, but due to people's timescales, it went by the wayside. But we're going to try and organise it again. So I'll touch base with you on that anyway. But again, thanks for considering the OYM listeners and giving a discount on that. That's fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, stay with us there for a minute, Richard. We're going to go off to a bit of music, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
Okay, we're back. Those Shadows by Cian Loughnane. Cian is an unsigned artist, and we've promoted his song there for many weeks now. And as we always say, if you are an unsigned artist and you'll be interested in having one of your tunes played during the musical break, do get in contact. info@OYMradio.com.
Brilliant information from Richard, as usual. The health stuff, fantastic. We'll get him on again. We have loads more to talk about. We can never fit it all in, so we will do another part 2 in a couple of months' time. Now, just a couple of things to touch base on. During the week, we got an email, and we were asked to do a video interview by someone who's well known. And it was an honour for, to be asked for us to do it. Now, the problem is that we don't actually have a good quality camera. the camera that we have is kind of the normal one that you get, and it doesn't have a headphone jack, it doesn't have a mic in jack, and it's not really professional quality. It's just one of these home camcorder things. So we were just wondering if anybody has a video camera that they wouldn't mind giving us a lend of, or if you are in that game and you don't mind doing the video, doing the interview, recording the interview on the video, and then passing it off to us, that'd be fantastic. And I'm sure we'll throw in a t-shirt and a few stickers and a few bits and pieces, maybe lunch as well. There's a possibility as well.
A date with Alan.
I tell you, not date with two of us. What are you talking about? We're going to be both doing the interview.
Menage a trois.
So if you do, if you have, if one of the things on our wish list was to get a proper camera to start doing video interviews, rather than just the radio stuff, but the cameras are quite expensive, and money's tight and all that kind of stuff. So if somebody has a lend of a camera, or somebody has a camera and you don't mind doing the video, then please contact us on info@oym.com, and it'd be fantastic. This interview it's going to be quite interesting. I will say that it'll be quite interesting. So as I say, give us a shout and let us know. And also, if you are a budding videographer, it would be nice to add it to your portfolio as well if you're trying to build up a portfolio for your business. So it'd be a good idea there. Right, okay, Steve, over to you.
Yes, we had a notification or a note or an email during the week from Chris, and I'm just going to read this out as it is. And it says, "Hi Alan and Steve, I'm delighted to give OYM Radio a world exclusive and officially announce that the Ireland Awakens conference, in conjunction with Miles Johnson's Basis project, taking place in the Talbot Hotel, Stillorgan, on the weekend of Friday and Saturday and Sunday. That's the 15th, 16th and 17th of September. The 3-day event will comprise of 16 national and international speakers covering a wide range of subjects from UFOs, alien abductions, controlled remote viewing, sacred sites, the elite, mind control, ritual child abuse and many more. One of the main reasons for the conference is to get up to the minute new information from an Irish perspective out into the public domain. Chris is very excited that, as well as Miles Johnson speaking here in Ireland for the first time in many years, Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot will also be giving presentations on both the Saturday and the Sunday. And of course, if that's not enough, he says, the two gentlemen I both respect and admire, Alan and Steve from OYM Radio, will also be giving a talk. Thanks, Chris. This is an excellent opportunity to meet like-minded people, and workshops are planned for those interested. He really hopes all OYM listeners will support the Ireland Awakens conference, and maybe we could all arrange a get-together at the event. He said tickets are available from Eventbrite, and all updates will be posted on Miles Johnson's The Basis Project website, and any queries, please contact IrelandAwakens2017 at gmail.com. Love and kisses from Chris. Thanks, Chris.
There you go. Cheers, Chris. Alright, so it's coming up, and we'll be doing a talk there. We have to get our talking shoes on and get something sorted for the presentation. I know we roughly know what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the waking up process, and we're going to be, we'll see what we'll go through on that. Now, as I said at the start of the show, check out the credit unions. Let's get rid of these banks. If you want to deal a blow to the banks and bring down the banks and get rid of your own debt or reduce your debt, pop into your local credit union, check out the interest rates, check out the deals they're doing now. They're really good. And just get away from the banks. Pay off your debt and get away from the banks. It's going to be a big improvement, I can assure you, by doing that. Now, on Steve, you have information about Vin's show tonight, which is going to be important as well.
I do, yeah. Tonight at 9 o'clock after we finish, Vin will be on People's Internet Radio. He's going to be discussing Vaxxed. And this is a very important issue, so please share it with as many parents as you can, and just make everyone aware of it, and try and get them all onto peoplesinternetradio.com at 9 o'clock, because it's going to be fantastic. So not to be missed.
It seems to be the big issue at the moment, the vaccine issue. And as I think your wife, Steve, said, that BA said that they had the viewing in the Tivoli Centre.
In the Tivoli,
The Tivoli Centre on Friday, the Vaxxed movie. And if you have not seen the Vaxxed movie, I suggest you have a look at it and then make up your own mind. Don't let a group of people, and I'm not being funny about this, but don't let a group of people try and stop you seeing the other side of the coin. You know, we're not turning around and saying, don't vaccinate. What we're saying is, present yourself, get the information and look at both sides. And then decide, when you have the information, then decide for yourself whether you want to vaccinate your kids or not. It's up to you. Now, we will try and get a member of Regret on the show as well. We've put the feelers out to a number of people for coming on for doing shows. So fingers crossed, if they get back to us, we'll get them on. Now, next week we have Bernadette Bowen. Now, Bernadette hasn't been on the show for a long time. But she's been doing fantastic work. She had breast cancer twice, and it was the second time she got the breast cancer that she decided there must be a natural way to cure this or to heal this, rather than going down the pharmaceutical route. And she just, her ideas and what she was doing of natural foods has grown, where she has videos and books and she does seminars, and I'm sure she's obviously, since the last time we've spoken to her, I'm sure she's learned so much more about what's been going on. So I look forward to speaking to Bernadette next week on the show. And again, you can ring Bernadette during the day. I think if you go to her website, which is changessimple.com, you can ring her for advice for free. And she might say to you, you might tell her what symptom you have, and she might say, well, if you want to try and improve that, then what you do is, take this vegetable or this fruit or whatever, or combine these and juice them and all that kind of stuff. That advice is free. So if you do have an ailment and there's something wrong and you're not sure where to turn or what food to get, give Bernadette a ring and tell her that you've heard her or heard us talk about it on the show, and that, and ask, have a talk to her about your symptoms. And she'd be more than happy to help you out there. Right, for myself, Alan James, take it easy. Have a good week. I hope the weather stays up the way it is at the moment. It'd be fantastic. And have a good, as I say, have a good week and take care. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Okay, we spoke with GNM, the German New Medicine, earlier. There is a seminar coming up in Cork. That is going to be the 18th of May and also the 20 and 21st of May this year. I know we're tight for time, so I will post the link up on the website, or on the chat rooms, both of the chat rooms, so do stay there. And we'll catch you all again next week. Stay tuned for Vin and have a great week. For myself, Stephen George, take care. Bye-bye.